become closer, right? Like the whole thing is being a Christian is a little Christ, right? To be more like Christ. And how do we be more like Christ? Well, we look to him for for all things, and that's hard. That's a hard thing to do. At least it is for me. Being human, it's a hard thing.
Welcome to the Carla Rand Show, a weekly podcast designed to dig into the lives of everyday people. People who are making a positive impact, people who have risen above and overcome obstacles. Insights and stories from ordinary individuals who inspire us all towards the truly extraordinary. Here's your host.
Hey, it's Carla, and today I talked to Mark Avens. Mark Avens is a fitness and nutrition coach from Florida. So he talks about going to the beach and everything, which, kind of gets me a little bit jealous, but that's okay. So basically what he's talking about is how he was religious. So he had this religion growing up, but how that didn't really help him a lot kind of as he got older. But then as he got kind of in his adult years, he came to faith in Jesus Christ. So he became a Christian. So he kind of shares his journey with that and how that happened. And he has a story about his son and just shares some of the struggles that he had in his life and how that has been a help to him. We also talk about people that maybe say, oh, is Christianity a crutch? We go into that. And I was a little bit like wondering how this was going to go because I didn't want to preach at you. A lot of people don't want to be preached at. But I think you'll find that the way Mark shares it and the way that we have this conversation, that you'll find that it's just helpful to hear his story. And then you can take it, do whatever you want with it. But then at least you have that information. And I think you'll find it interesting and hopefully helpful. And let's get into it. All right. Well, welcome. Welcome to the Carla Rand Show. Welcome to the program here. Mark, glad to have you.
Thanks for having me, Carla. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you said you would do this. So I want to kind of just give everybody a little bit of context. So first of all, Mark Avens, where are you from? Somewhere in the States, because you said you went to the beach. Where are you from?
Currently, I'm in Florida, but I grew up in the Northeast. So I was a New Yorker, so I'm technically a Yankee. But now I'm here in Florida. Been here for 18 years.
Okay, cool. And you have a nutrition and fitness business, correct?
Correct.
And what do you do there with that? Just give us a little bit of context, kind of what you're currently doing with that.
Yeah, currently I'm taking what I've been doing for the past 25 years and basically broke away from face-to-face in person. And that was about 3 years ago. Started an online fitness coaching business, and it's something I didn't have any clue. If you were to ask me 4 years ago, I would have said, no idea what that looks like. And Here I am 3.5 years later, 4 years later now. And I'm online and I work with men and women, busy moms and dads over 40 who really trying to not just lose weight, because there's so many people in the 40s trying to lose weight, but trying to lose weight and keep it off forever. That's like my big deal is not just to help people lose weight, but to help them keep it off, learn what they need to do to keep it off forever. And the two big things is my program is about is really just not long workouts and not impossible diets. And those are really two big factors that I find of being like the hurdles a lot of people my age group, 40s and 50s struggle with.
Yeah. Yeah. We do a lot of the same stuff, Mark, because I was following you on Facebook a bit, checking out your stuff. And I'm totally the same way. Let's get the weight off. Let's keep it off. Let's have a sustainable lifestyle change and not these crash diets, because you and I both know you can get people to lose weight in a hurry by doing all kinds of crazy stuff, but they're going to just gain it all back and more. And then they're going to be frustrated and they're going to have to go to the next diet person or the next program. And they're just going to keep cycling through. I want them to be able to get a lifestyle that they can do for the rest of their life. And that sounds like exactly what you're after too. Hey.
Yeah, 100%. And the lifestyle is hard to sell because people want what they've been told they need to want, and that's lose the weight.
Yeah.
And that's the struggle, is to try to teach people that. So you have to just encourage and guide them along the way, and that's pretty much what my program does.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. So you're married now, you got 2 kids. You're in Florida right now, but let's take me back to what Mark Avens, little Mark, was like when he was about 12 or 13 years old. What were you up to? Where did you live? Tell me a little bit about your life.
Sure. It's awesome. In fact, I was thinking about it because over Father's Day weekend, I was around my parents, and I wish I don't spend enough time. They live about an hour and a half away, but essentially I grew up, my father was a carpenter and he was a farm boy. And actually what the cool thing is I ended up 12 years old. So let's say 12, 13-year-old, I was living in a house that I was the 5th generation in. So it was a 200-year-old house. My great uncle in Long Island was a whaling captain. And we lived in this house 5 generations later. So you can just imagine everything, this old house. And here I am, 12-year-old boy, just, running and gunning everything, doing everything, breaking everything. We had old furniture I couldn't sit on. It it was a hot mess. So it says we had a farm, so it was property, and at 12 years old, I was out and about. I was just an active, busy kid, and it was fun. And we were reminiscing. We were talking to my parents just about having the farm and like all the what we had access to back then. We had animals, we had pigs and chickens and fresh eggs. And I know because you have a farm, right? And so you're
Yeah.
smiling as I'm talking
Yeah.
about this. But I think that I didn't obviously have any appreciation at the age of 12 or my younger years. But now I think back and there's something to be said about that sort of lifestyle. And it definitely helped shape who I am now, having that kind of experience growing up.
Yeah, cool. So, like, did you go to school? Did you play sports? Were you good at school, or were you the class clown? Like, tell me a little bit about what school was like for you.
Yeah, school started out. I grew up Catholic and I went to Catholic school. My sister went through I have one sister and she went all through Catholic school, middle school, elementary, high school, et cetera. And I went till about sixth grade. So I think that might've been around 12 or 13. I can't
Yeah,
remember
something like
exactly what that age is. And I'll never forget, I had my own permanent seat in the principal's office. It was basically my seat. So that can probably trigger you off to know that I wasn't the best student. In fact, I was just busy and active. And at that time, Catholic schools didn't really have access. We didn't have any ball fields. We had a basketball court, but basically our playground, which was a parking lot of the church, was where we played. And it was hard because we had nuns as teachers, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I was just kind of going against the grain. I was just one of those, like, I think they probably would have classified me as ADD at that time, but I was active. I always been, just my entire life, always active. But anyway, so the principal kindly requested that I go maybe to a public school because it would have been better off because they had sports and things like that for me. And you know what? It was a perfect fit. That's exactly what my parents did. They took that suggestion. I don't think I was really allowed back, more or less, but I went to a public school and it was great. Became an athlete, tried football. I did 3 sports pretty much every year in high school. Soccer, track, basketball I tried, but track and soccer were my 2 sports, and just took to them. They helped drain some of the energy that I had in the classroom, sitting in my seat, trying to be a good student, which I really wasn't much for.
Yeah, I'd like to talk more about school. I have my own opinions about that. I'll just say this about school. We spend our whole life trying to teach our kids how to sit still in school, right? You spend that whole kind of their their early years. And then when they're done school, you're trying to get these adults to get moving, right? Because they all sit and they've learned to sit. And then it's like, hey guys, you got to get moving, you got to get active, you got to exercise. So it's like we're training them and then we have to untrain them. Like I just think it's a bit of a broken system, but that's maybe
Totally
for another.
broken.
Yeah.
No, totally broken. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Gym was one of my favorite, I think, most memorable things about school for me was the active stuff, the things that were, the gym class. I remember my gym teacher in high school, even in middle school. I remember those experiences. I don't remember what I learned. I mean, I learned some stuff in school, but those aren't the memories that I had. Being active and playing with my friends and doing those types of things were truly, like, even in Catholic school, I remember back. And I think I'm glad that I had those experiences, because now it's not even a requirement for them, at least here in the schools in Florida. The system is broken.
Yeah.
Enough said with that.
Yeah, no, I love,
Yeah.
I remember my phys ed teachers. I remember being active too. Like that was my favorite thing. And I don't remember a whole lot else, but anyways, we will move on.
Sure.
So you went to a Catholic school, and it sounds like the Catholic schools I think now are quite different, at least in Canada. They're quite different. They're quite similar to the public schools in the way they're structured. They usually have gyms and they have all that. I actually grew up homeschooling a bit and going to a Christian school. So it was very similar to what you're describing in that, like, we didn't have like a gym or anything. So I remember just going in the school parking lot. We would play dodgeball in one of the classrooms,
Love it. Yeah.
And we
so
did
fun.
have a soccer, a place to play soccer. Like we'd have to just walk a block or so away. So we'd go play soccer there. And so we just played a lot of soccer. But of course, here we have winter, right? Florida, you guys don't get like snow. So there's only be a small period of time where we could actually be doing that. So anyways, but you know what? We got through. It was good. So you kind of grew up with religion then as a Catholic, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So when did you kind of realize that maybe this religion wasn't maybe enough, or there was something missing? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I think on a maturity level, I didn't really know anything other than just following what my parents did, right? So I went to school, I did what I had to do. I wore the tie in Catholic school, and I had to wear the attire, and I had to do this church on Sunday. And my parents were involved for a while, so I had some good experiences. but it was really, I mean, in my experience, and again, partly maybe it was because of my level of maturity or lack of maturity that I didn't really get it. Like, I didn't understand what that meant. It was really just more tradition, right? You go to school, you go to Catholic school, you do the things, there was, Bible, not really in Bible class, but just learning about the traditions, if you will, of what to do in religion as far as that goes, at least from my experience. And I don't know that's with everybody else's, but then it was like, holidays, and, we went to Sunday service, Christmas, midnight mass, and Easter, and all those types of things. So that's pretty much it. Like, that's really, so there wasn't really anything at that time. Now looking back on it, there wasn't anything that was like drawing me into, say, religion or faith in general. And then completely, once high school came, when my parents drifted away, they didn't really go. We went on the typical holidays for church, and that was about it. That was kind of my experience, at least at the younger year. And then all through college, nothing. I didn't do anything. I didn't go to church, didn't pursue any kind of faith or religion or anything.
Yeah, okay. So when did it hit you that maybe you needed something else? Because I know right now that you do have faith. So obviously there was some sort of a shift there for you.
Yeah, like before, things weren't bad. Like, things were good. Life was pretty good without it. So I didn't really feel there was any need. And I met my wife in New York. I had moved out. Once I graduated school, I moved into New York City. So it was different than where I was going to school, upstate New York. So moved to New York City, did the life of, urban living. It was hard. It was hard to make a lot of money, just kind of make what you can. And it was fun, a lot of fun. Then I met my wife, and we got married and moved here 18 years ago, started a family. And that was really, I think, partly moving to Florida because there's a lot of religion and different kind of faith, if you will. Just everything from Baptists to Catholics to Christians to, non-denominational to everything in between, Episcopalian, and I didn't know any of that, but I just knew that there was people doing that. Like, church was being done here. You drive down and you drive 20 minutes in one direction, you'll go by 10 churches. That's just how it is here in Florida. It is everywhere. Bible Belt, right? Part of the Bible Belt. So we didn't have any interest. Our lives are good and stuff and everything. But then we always felt like you'd hear a conversation, somebody after church on Sunday, and regardless of where they went. And there was just something that it didn't draw us to it, but we were intrigued. Like, we were just a bit intrigued. And it's like, you know what, maybe we should try. So we, long story short, my wife and I tried a few different places. We went to a Catholic service. We went to Episcopalian, we did the Methodist church, we did, all different kinds, and just was like, okay, it kind of reminded us of back when my wife as well grew up Catholic. So it's kind of similar stories for the two of us. And anyway, that turned into us just saying, okay, maybe it's not what we were looking for. And then, I think that's the point where we didn't have it all the way up until then. And then when we started a family, my son he was about 6 or 7. He actually is kind of the pivotal moment, if you will, because we had friends that invited us, and we had people that knew we were struggling. So we went through a tough time with our son he had basically a lymphangioma. It was essentially what it looked like was a tennis ball size growth on his neck. And that kind of threw us in like a downward turn to an extent where we didn't know what it was. It wasn't cancer. It was a growth. We knew he had to have surgery. It wasn't like a little tiny surgery. It's major. Your kid going under general anesthesia. You don't want that for any kid, right? You don't want to see your kid have to suffer or be in pain or struggling. And that's what was happening. And that, I think, was I say think, I know. So what happened was, we didn't go to church at the time, but we went through, there was three major surgeries he had on his neck. And why I say 3 is he had one and it grew back. He had one and it grew back. The third one and it grew back. We went to the best surgeon in New York City, specifically what's called a lymphangioma glioblastoma benign cyst, and benign tumor on his neck that just kept growing back. Went to the best of the best. No problem. We got this covered. This is within 2 years now. And it grew back. So we're just like completely lost. Like, we're kind of like, a lot of people come into faith, at least what I've learned, and they have these, like, you're completely at ground zero, bottom of the barrel, like dire, people, if they're maybe addictive, have addictions and things like that, or they lost everything in their family or their whole business. And for us, it was our kid was suffering. And you have kids, right? Yeah. And you do anything for your kids. So we were doing everything, and that wasn't enough. And then somebody just was like, hey, come with us. Just come with us. So my wife and I, like, all right, what can it hurt? Like, let's just go. So we went at the time, church, literally it's right down the street. 3 miles down the street from us. And somebody invited us to go, and I'll never forget, because when we left, and as a just kind of put it in perspective, as a non-denominational church that actually was being launched, it was a contemporary service being launched out of a Methodist church, which was really, it's probably, I think, the first ever anywhere. And we went and we heard this pastor speak, and we left, and we're like, on our way home, I'll never forget, the same road coming back, because we're in the same house 18 years later. And I was like, did you kind of get that? She's like, yeah. I was like, that kind of made sense. Yeah. I didn't know this relationship thing existed. I had no idea what that meant. And that was the first time that I can look back and say we heard the gospel. And that was truly like amazing. Like, there's a relationship to be had. I thought you just know God and you have that relationship with God. Well, you can, but it's through Jesus. And that's what we learn. And I didn't know that. I'm like, whoa. Well, anyway, that didn't really, I say now it wooed us enough to go back again and go back again. And then to realize that then I hear things like, hey, it's okay to not have it all put together. It's okay to not have all the answers. We didn't have them, especially for our son. And we found out it was okay to surrender it. And surrender, how do you surrender? And for us, and my wife did, she did separately and I did, is we both first had to surrender our lives over to him. And that was something that was huge for us, because what it allowed us to do is to start this relationship. And when we started the relationship, it was kind of like, okay, we have this relationship now, through Jesus, like just letting him into our lives. And hey, if you haven't noticed, our son's sick. Can you do we don't know what to do. You lay it on the altar, you put it down there. And I'll never forget, because this is what sold me out, is my wife, we were praying and we learning how to pray. And this was between the fourth surgery where it was still growing back, and we were going to church, taking our kids there. And then my wife just had this moment where she was saying, this next surgery we're going to try, and maybe there's something with the tonsils, and now the best doctors, my wife's not a surgeon, she's a nurse practitioner. It's like, well, maybe we should just go and take the tonsils out. And the doctor's like, oh, we could do that, but that's not anything that has to do with this. So check this out. So fifth surgery goes in, comes back, and the doctors look at my wife and like, how did you know that? Because it was the exact thing that they said that there was like a duct thing that went behind the tonsils, which never showed up on any kind of MRIs or x-rays or any of that stuff. And it was there. And it was gone. It was done, healed, finished, boom. Wow. And obviously I don't think it was, at least in my wife and our opinion, it wasn't that she's like smarter than the doctors or any of that stuff. It's just God was saying like, hey, and honestly, I feel like that was after we surrendered our lives and after we allowed this relationship to start, my path with Jesus and my wives, and to know what that looked like. And then it was like, and my son never came back. And that was something that just started. Now that's just that's the pivotal moment. And then everything else from then on after is just, oh my gosh, like a complete train wreck. But I was on the train with Jesus at the time. And that was the best part of it. Because I think if I went through the train wreck from that point, he's 17 next month, he'll be 17. So it's 10 years. Yeah. In the past 10 years, I would not be back on the track. I would probably not be on the tracks right now. I'd be wrecked somewhere. And I say that because there's so many things from that point on. I have no idea how I'd get through them without having a relationship with God through Jesus. Like that's something why it's the absolute most important thing in my life. And not just because of the son, but that was what happened with my son but that was the turning point for my life. I've never looked back after that.
That's interesting. Yeah. And you're so right that, I mean, a lot of times it'll take, like you said, kind of being in the bottom before you go to God. I know for my parents, they lost their second child. And so that was a huge thing for them. And then that's when they came to Christ, right? The same similar kind of thing, right? Like just that I guess you're desperate in a way, right? You're like, I don't know what to do. This is beyond me, right? And that's why I think when a lot of people reach out to God, and sometimes I feel like, I actually had a friend tell me this one time, they had lost one of their babies. And I remember she said to me, Carla, don't wait until something bad happens to go to God. Go to God and keep that relationship with him when things are good, so that when things go bad, you have that already, you already have that good relationship. And I never forgot that, because I've always been like, hey, things are going good in my life right now. And I'm like, oh, it's easy to kind of turn away and be like, okay, I don't need God anymore. But to be like, no, I need him all the time. And I need his help even when things are good. Right. So that's been just kind of a lesson that I learned through that. But do you have anything else that you want to share? So you said that you suddenly went like after that thing with your son, he got the surgery on his tonsils. He got his tonsils removed. Then he was better. But then you said everything kind of was a train wreck. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about the train wreck? Maybe not everything, but some
Yeah.
of it?
Yeah. I mean, it was just, I say train wreck is just, I think actually became harder because when I started to put the steering wheel, like started to like literally move the steering wheel and let God take the steering wheel for me. And I still had to put the effort and intentionality into pursuing him. And that was really hard because, being a dad and trying to raise your kids right and be a good husband and provide for your family and be healthy and be active and pursue a business and be a good business owner. I owned a gym at the time when we were going through that stuff, and that was hard. And then just to be, what I was starting to learn was this whole faith thing it's not a selfish faith thing. It was like a starting point, the relationship. But God's just getting started when he teaches you how to be in a relationship because he wants you to be in that relationship so you can also share that light that God shines in your life to other people. So that was like, for me, that was, I think, even harder because I had no idea what that looked like. I just was living up until the last 30 something years. It was pretty much you do well, you work hard, you get ahead, you provide for your family, but it was all on me. Now I'm saying that, okay, while I still am responsible for taking care of my family and all that, I'm relying on God to help guide my steps.
Mm.
And the hardest part is you're supposed to allow him to guide your steps, even when things are really good, when you feel like you don't need him. But even worse off is when things suck and things aren't going well, because then you want to try to take that steering wheel over and start to direct and guide. And that's the struggle that I found. And I mean, we're going through the book of James now, and I've gone through it many times. In fact, my first mission trip in Costa Rica, shortly after like my surrendering my life over to him, I was invited to go on a men's surf mission trip. It was like a men's trip. Here were beaches. I'm a surf guy. And this is a trip to take men to Costa Rica to visit and be a part of a ministry that's down there. But there's also a fellowship with guys, and the draw is surfing. I was drawn into that surfing. And I'll tell you, it was, I don't know really where I was going with that, but that was kind of like the next kind of part. Oh, the reason why I say that is the first time I've ever done any kind of Bible study was on that trip. And we went through James. I didn't really understand it at the time because I hadn't really opened the Bible much at all, except for when I was confessing my sins to the priest and saying, hey, you got to say Our Fathers and Hail Marys and all these. You have to say 8 of these and 6 of those. But anyway, the point is that I'm going through the book of James now. And, right in the first part of James, it's count everything as pure joy. Count all of the things, the good things and the bad things that are going on in your life as pure joy. I'm like, how is that? I don't like the bad stuff. You're supposed to count as joy too. And then I read more into it. It's this testing. Well, I remember reading James in the beginning about testing. Is God testing me right now? It's like, is that being a test? And then I'm realizing and we're digging in it now with the guys that I fellowship with. And this testing, I realize it's like more of, and I shared this the other day, this testing is more of what a silversmith does, is testing silver. And what a testing does is it helps bring the impurities out of the silver. When the silversmith is heating up and refining the silver that they're making, whatever that is, they're testing it. And that's a refinement. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I read James like, man, I've gone through James, I don't know how many times, and it's reading to me different now. And what's really crazy is to think of how much he's refined me from that first time that I went through James, where I thought, God just testing me to be around all these Christian surfer guys. And I don't know what that looks like, but I know there's good waves out there, and I hope I don't die because I don't know how to surf real well. But then I look back, what the crazy thing is, that was the starting point to a 10-year relationship that I have with the pastor and his family that have this whole ministry in Costa Rica that's really struggling right now because of all the lockdown, and the country is completely shut down. And that's entirely reliant on tourism and travel. There's nothing going on there. But the amazing thing is, I look back at this refinement, and just as he is refining me, he's refining this pastor that's been in this ministry at Costa Rica for 15 years. And he just keeps showing up and keeps showing me how he wants to use me and how he wants to refine me, if you will. And ultimately, I know the refinement, it isn't anything I'm doing that's so great, or so magical or powerful. It's the things that he's showing me. It's all him. It's all the blessings, all the struggles is to help refine me, to become closer, right? Like the whole thing is being a Christian is a little Christ, right? To be more like Christ. And how do we be more like Christ? Well, we look to him for for all things, and that's hard. That's a hard thing to do. At least it is for me. Being human, it's a hard thing.
Yeah. And what would you say, like, because a lot of people that I talk to, they're like, oh, everyone's like nowadays, everyone's like, oh, that's nice that you have faith, pat, pat. That's really sweet. I'm glad that works for you. I've got something else going on, but, we all kind of do our thing or whatever. But there's a lot of people, especially men, that say Christianity is a crutch. We don't need that. Those are for the weak people, the mothers and small children and the weak men that need faith and need to have Jesus in their life because they're weak. What would you say about that, Mark? I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's good. I don't know, like if I have something to say, honestly, probably if I were to come across somebody like that, the best thing about like for your own personal walk is that my journey is my journey. Like nobody can, like they can say, oh, that wasn't true, this in the Bible, or that's a nice story. But what happened to me and my testimony is my testimony. Nobody can take that away. Like nobody can take that. The other thing is nobody can take my relationship away either. They can take everything else away. Take my house, my money, my kids, my family, my job, all of my stuff, but I can't take that relationship away. And I can say it as freely as with somebody that maybe says that, some macho guy. I think two things get in the way: pride. And I have, there's in my family a bit of pride in my family, and not in a healthy way. I know that's a big thing that I've seen, and God's revealed to me through my walk with him is feeling prideful. Again, that whole development of like, it's all on me to make sure everybody's taken care of. So why would I need any kind of faith? But I would say is, you don't know what you're missing out on. Like, that's the thing. And like, I think I'm stronger all the way around, not just physically and mentally, emotionally, even with dealing with what's going on in this crazy messed up world right now, right? Because we'd be lying if we won't, it's not affecting all of us, Christians, non-Christians, whatever color your skin is, whatever kind of demographic, wherever you live in this world, whatever your faith, everybody's affected. But the difference between, I think, having you rely on your own efforts is that it's sometimes not good enough. Like it wasn't when we were going through what was happening with my son. And the beautiful thing is that if you just, the crazy thing to me is the only thing you have to do is to let him in your life. It's not like you like, I think the trouble with men, maybe if we're talking about men, is that men think that we have to give up what we're doing. This is on me. Like I've done this. I've worked hard. I've made the money. I'm the strongest, toughest. I've been able to provide like that. And we have to people think they have to give that up. No, it's just acknowledging that all of the stuff that you've gotten is from the blessings that God's put in your way. Whether you acknowledge that it's from him or not is up to you. But it only takes just saying, I want you in my life. And I think that's the hardest thing, because then it realizes that it's not just your own efforts. That's kind of like the hardest thing. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. So you need a certain amount of humility. You need to kind of like surrender to Christ. You can't just be like, I'm going to do my own thing and I'm going to kind of tack on Jesus on the side here and go to him once in a while, or, wear a bracelet that says Jesus on it or something. You kind of like, you do want to surrender your life. But yeah, it's too bad that you struggle with pride. I never struggle with pride. I'm like totally perfect, Mark. Just kidding.
Yeah, like
got
pride,
you there,
I would
man.
say no, but pride is not something that I think in my family in general, but it is something I'm about as vulnerable. I'm a crier. Like I'll cry. I'll share my story. I don't mind that. But yeah, I think it's sad because there's a lot of men that are missing out on that. And there's a relationship unlike anything other, that any friend, buddy of yours you can have, even with your own wife. My relationship with God through Jesus is like completely different, but it's made my relationship with my wife so much better. It's made my relationship with myself so much better. Like having the approval of myself and knowing that I'm so valuable enough that God actually went to bat, put his son on the stake for us and for our sins and all those things. And I know a lot of people don't necessarily get it if anybody's listening now. And I didn't get it either. And the beautiful thing is you don't have to get it. You don't have to completely understand it. You just have to walk closer to it and start to open yourself up and open your heart. And for me, I realized that my heart is a lot bigger and a lot softer, having Lord in it. It doesn't mean I'm not strong, because you mess with my family and I'm going to take you down. Like, you come and mess with my business, I'm going to take you down. Don't think I won't. Like, there's a strength there. That's, again, maybe it's not really a pride thing. It's a matter of, hey, while I have faith, I'm also sensible enough. Don't come messing with my family. Like, don't mess with my wife. Don't mess with my business. Those types of things. But also knows that I wouldn't have any of that stuff if it weren't for who helped put it there in the first place. The crazy thing I think about with faith and maybe religion, because people, I hear all the time, like, no, I think a lot of times people get hurt by the church. They get hurt because people hurt people. And I don't care if you're Christian, if you're Baptist, Lutheran, Methodist, Episcopalian, if you're born again, whatever it is, we're all human. We're still human. We're still messed up. We still have sin in our lives. We still do things. And that whole refinement thing is what I like to come back to, because I really feel that the more you let him in, the more he can test you in a way, refine you in a way. And I want to be like, I don't want to be a junky piece of metal. I want to be a nice, refined piece of metal. And I know that happens not from what I can do, but more from what he can do through me. And that's kind of where I'm at now. It's a hard road. It doesn't mean that life just gets easier. It just means that you can actually get through life better when you have that kind of relationship. And at least for me.
So what would you say to somebody, Mark, who's watching this and they're like, okay, some of the stuff that Mark says kind of makes sense, but what do I actually do? Because we all want, like, where's the box to check? Okay, I want that relationship with God. What do I do? Like you say, you need Jesus, or you need Jesus Christ, or he died on the cross for my sin. What do I do? How do I get to Jesus? How do I get to God?
Yeah, like the whole jackpot. It made me think. I heard from Pastor the other day, like a couple of weeks ago, talk about this jackpot Jesus. Like, we kind of only want him around when you want him to take care of some problems in your life, relationship, money, jackpot, prosperity kind of gospel type thing. And for someone, as far as like what to do, is like, here's the crazy thing is, like, nobody's been in churches. I mean, for the most part, for the last several weeks, the most beautiful thing I've seen out of nobody going to church or doing the religion Sunday thing is that I've seen so much of God working so much through other people. And even my coach and my family, and just seeing it in other people's lives, and some stuff on social media, although a lot of social media is like the other direction, see so many good things, and realizing that while on a corporate level, church is a great thing, because you build community and you can be around other believers who can help encourage you and help mentor you. And for me, when I was a new, like, fresh newbie Christian, if you will, I learned from the ones that have been walking in it, right? I mean, same for me. While I have a business mentor, I have the opportunity to learn from people who have already walked through it. So that's the good part of it. But here's the thing, when it comes to like starting, I didn't know this. I happened to go to church and hear a message, and that's but I know people that just start talking to them. Just start, like, so I think your question was like, well, how do I get this Jesus in my life? It's not that hard. Well, you can do a lot of different things. You can open up a Bible, but the Bible is really hard to read if you don't know where to go, what to do. You can go listen to sermons online. They're everywhere. You can talk to somebody who maybe is strong in their faith, who has gone through. Like, I always tell people, reach out to me, come, talk to me. I'll share you my story. I'm not going to try to preach, oh, you're going to hell if you don't do this. That's not what I do. Just share my story. My life's completely transformed since allowing God into my life.
Kind of asking God, right? To sort of say, God, like, even just sometimes I'll have a prayer. I'm just like, God, help me. God, help me. He hears that prayer. So you might be in that situation in your life where you're just like, God, help me, right? I know when I was little, because I became a Christian when I was about only 7 or 8, and I was laying in my bed, and I suddenly was like, I can't go to sleep until I get things right with Jesus. I just suddenly felt like I might die or something might happen. I don't know. I'm sure it was God just like putting that on my heart. So I told my sister, I think she was in the bottom bunk, and I said, I got to ask Jesus into my heart. She's like, okay, well, go get Mom. So I went get Mom's vacuuming the floor, She's like, what are you doing? Get to bed. It's late. I'm like, Mom, I need to like ask Jesus into my heart. She's like, whoa, okay. She turns the vacuum off. She sits with me, and she basically prays. And it's basically just like, God, Jesus, I want you to be Lord of my life. That's really what it was. It was like, I confess, because it says in the Bible, like if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. So that's essentially what I did. It was just like, okay, I'm a sinner. I agree with that. Jesus died on the cross for my sins, so he's forgiven me. Thank you, Lord. And I'm going to follow you for the rest of my life. That was essentially all it was. And that was my conversion. And then I got baptized later on. And baptism is just like, I don't know how you guys, but basically it's just a way to say, yes, I am a follower of Christ.
Yeah.
Kind of raising your
like
hand.
Public.
Yeah.
Public, make it public, profession. Yeah, same. And that's what I went through actually when I was in Costa Rica, a year after, because I actually had my second baptism. I had one when I was little, when I was a baby, when it was more welcoming in the church, and this was more just making it public. That's it. Just welcoming him, allowing him into your life, and that's the beautiful thing about. Here's the thing I like to think of is I feel God was pursuing me my entire life. I just feel that he caught up to me exactly when he needed to. And I think that's what happens, whether it's because of a dire situation or because of your life maybe stuck in being in a rut somewhere, or like it could be a family member, it could be anything. But I feel like it's exactly the time he wants to. Like, I don't think it's a matter, like, I don't think if I even was having I know there's a free will, and we don't maybe have to get into, because that's probably a whole nother discussion. And I agree, because I had to accept, and that's the beautiful thing about free will. It's you have the ability to say yes or no. And I decided, well, I wasn't saying no before, but I didn't realize, and I always like to think of, I stand at the door and knock. I forget the Bible verse, but I stand at the door and knock, and when you hear his voice, like you hear the knock, you let him into your life, you open the door and let him in. The first thing is hearing the knock. And I wasn't even paying any attention to any knock, and I feel like he put it in there and he made it loud enough for exactly the time he needed to. So, I do feel, though, there's people that, say they have this relationship, or they're believers and they know God, and they know the Bible real well. And I've met plenty of people like that. But then you see how they live their life, and then you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. I'm not saying like in a judgmental way, just in a sense like, well, okay, if you believe this is true, then your actions aren't really speaking to what you're saying there. And that's a hard thing, like, because I know I'm not perfect. I know I'm still, the times I mess up. I think I cursed doing a live the other day, and I got all into it and fired up. And then it's not even like some of those things. And that's I guess it's what it's called. And this is maybe a fancy term. Progressive sanctification is like a kind of fancy term to use. You like progressing. It's kind of like workouts, like we know, right? How do you get better at working out? How do you get in better shape? You see progress. Well, how do you make progress? Do you do some of the things that move you closer to better health? There's like that spiritual health that I feel as well, is that I still want to eat pizza and have some ice cream and enjoy a couple beers or whatever and do that. And I know, but if I'm pursuing that more, it's going to take me away from my health. Same thing in a spiritual sense, a spiritual fitness, if you will, is I feel like when I'm pursuing that, when I'm pursuing the things that I know are favorable to my spiritual health, there's a reward, there's that value, there's that fruit, if you will, just like there is in fitness. And maybe that's what helps me parallel it while I'm going through people's lives and helping them transform their bodies and stuff, because there's a transformation that takes place. And that's what's been really 10 years. I feel like I'm just getting started, though. I feel like I'm not even scratching the surface with how much I know about this Jesus guy and the power that he has. Because I think of all the doom and gloom that a lot of people have, and I say is, you know what? Yes, there's a lot of stuff going on that maybe we don't have control over, but I look at the people that are say that their stresses are their stress, but they say they're managed well. They say their health is managed well. They say that their lives are still fairly in order. And then I talk to them, and a lot of times, not all, but a lot of times their faith is strong, and there's something that's attractive to that. Like, that's attractive to me. When I was a new Christian, I was attracted to people who had healthy relationships in their families and their lives and their mission in life and what they were pursuing, and even the success that they had. Like, there's an attractiveness to that when I was a new Christian, that I was like, you know what, I don't know what that looks like, but I know I want to go towards that direction. And I think that's what's awesome about being a believer, just having faith. So.
Yeah, cool. Well, yeah, thanks for sharing that. I just wanted to say you talked about progressive sanctification. I'm not going to go all into it, but basically, what the way
Yeah.
I describe it is there's justification, which is when you become a Christian, when you let God into your life, He changes you. Boom. You are now saved. You are now a Christian. You are going to heaven. You are not going to hell. You are on the right track. You have that relationship with God. You can now come to God. So that's the justification. That's like God saying, "You're mine." But then there's the sanctification that is, like you said, the progressive, where, okay, now I'm justified, I'm a Christian, but I'm still pretty messed up. So the sanctification is like God, like refining you, like you say, right? Like just
Yeah.
continually
Yeah.
making you a purer and purer metal, so that as you get to the end of your life, you're perfect. No, you're not perfect, but you're a little closer than you were when you started. That's the idea, right?
Yeah, yeah. I heard. It's funny you said that because it made me think right away, and I've shared this with other people. Francis Chan, have you ever heard of him
Yeah,
before? Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. So I hear his rope analogy. I love it, and I've read some of his books, Crazy Love, some good ones, and he's got some great messages. And one of the things I think about is with the rope, and this really hit me. And it was actually, again, comes back to Costa Rica, and I had some really great experience. I've been there, I don't know, dozens of times. And hearing his rope analogy, we talked about. You ever seen the rope analogy
I
where he
think I
talks
did,
about?
but tell me about it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so like I think of like because we had battling ropes. When I heard it, we had these battling ropes in the gym. You know, the ones that are hooked up. I'm sure
yeah,
you're familiar. You probably have them up
yeah.
with
You
your
shake
clients.
them, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you work them out, and we had them in our gym. We had one of those functional type gyms. I'll never forget hearing about Francis Chan on this trip from this young girl who shared the story about. He talked about this rope analogy and said, you know, on the end of those ropes, like the battling ropes, is this like cap, like a kind of tied off, or maybe plastic wrap around to keep the ropes from fraying, right?
Yeah.
And you think of that, you think of our lives in existence, and you think of that little tip of the rope is our lives on earth. So you think of like Christianity, Christian lives, but our lives on earth are that little plastic, that little end of the rope. And it says that people spend, and I might butcher this a little bit, but it's so good. Is people spend their whole lives now, and we're talking about just the tip of that rope, not the rest of the rope, the tip of the whole rope, the tip of the rope. They spend their whole lives, like, you know, they go to school, get good grades. We talk about elementary school, follow what your parents do. Then you pursue, get career, go to college, pursue work, all those things. You pursue, get better, get ahead. For the last like 20, 30 years of your life, 20 years, maybe some less, depending on for retirement, and like doing everything your whole life for the last little bit of retirement, which is just a little bit of that rope. And we're people that don't have faith, that don't believe, that maybe they just, there's no direction after. Just going to live my life, go hard. There's only one life, do the best you can. And they're living all for that little bit of retirement. Whereas like for somebody as a believer in faith, and what he shared was like, but what about after? What about eternity?
It's
So
a long
the rope
time.
that keeps going and going and going. Yeah. So like, as that made me think, it's like, okay, do I want to spend my entire life for the last little bit of the 10, 20, 30 years that I have left? Or as a believer, can I pursue my entire life, the whole thing, at least even for me in my 30s, where I kind of understood this, started to understand it, the rest of my life, pursuing the rest of that tip for all of eternity, meaning not just for myself, but for other people who want to come along, for other people that I can share my voice to and say, hey, not telling you I'm pushing my faith on you or my religion on you. I'm just sharing with you, here's the options. You got a couple options. Like, and there's the option one of living just your life for life, or living in it, having this eternal thing that's on and on and on and on forever. And I know it's a hard thing. It's even hard to conceptualize. But I always say is like, would you rather be wrong on that end or on that end? Like, to me, if I'm wrong, I'm still living a fairly good life. I still, even if I'm pursuing the things that God wants for me, they're really pretty valuable things. If I just pursued it for then, if I'm wrong and this whole faith thing was right, then that's not there after. And that does not look at all attractive to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. No, I appreciate that, Mark. Thanks for everything that you shared. And I think of that too a lot. I'm like, oh, we get so hung up on that little piece of our life, and we forget that this little piece of our life. And I used to think this when I was little. I'm like, my job is to get to know Jesus really well and to bring as many people as I can with me to eternity. Like, that's ultimately what our job is. It's very simple, right? And so that's ultimately our job. And yeah, we're going to have family, we're going to have work, we're going to have all that stuff, maybe retirement, whatever, in that little window. But it's a tiny little window. So if you don't have eternity in mind, it's pretty depressing to think this is all I have, right? So, so thank you for sharing that. I think we're going to wrap up now. But did you have any closing words, Mark, that you want to share, or anything else? Or is that you shared?
I think that's what gets me inspired and maybe helps fill my cup, and think of that in my prayers, when I pray now, it's a little different than maybe asking God to fix this or to help this or to help we did in the beginning, to help my son, heal him, do whatever you need to do to heal him. And he did that. And he kept doing things along the way. And now it's, God, what do you want for me in this moment of my life? And how can you use me to your best of your ability? And when I start to look at him, then he usually, and again, the hardest part is it's in his timing, not my timing. And I think that's probably the toughest thing, is that the timing is, you start to put it where you want it to be done now. I want this now. We're instant gratification, right? We want an answer. We go to Google. Mm-hmm. Well, God doesn't work that way. And I would say is my biggest thing is, for when you talked about how do people come to their faith, is to just look at what other, if you admire other people, you have these attractive people and you feel like there's something missing and you're chasing after what you think is missing. It could be that faith component that you could be missing. And I didn't realize it. Like I said, life was pretty good in my way. And I didn't realize it could be so much better. Mm. And again, this is not me to say, hey, you have to do this. You have the free will to do it. And my job is just to allow God to use me to reach as many people for fitness, to reach and help them in the physical sense, to grow physically, get physically stronger and healthier, but then also spiritually. If he's going to allow me to use my platform and fitness to reach others for him, then that's amazing. To me is great. So that's what I have. Yeah.
Thank you. So where do people go to find you, Mark? If they want to talk to you about their faith, or they want to talk to you about fitness and nutrition, where do they go to? Where's the best place?
Yeah, probably the easiest. I'm really a one platform guy. I try to float around, but my one platform's on Facebook. So you can just look up my name. I don't think there's any other Mark Avens. I might have some distant family members, but you can search me up. The Lean Body Breakthrough. I'm the creator of the Lean Body Breakthrough. And if you just go on to Facebook, you can find me on there. I have a Facebook group, Over 40 Fit Tribe, as well. And you can always reach out, send me a private message if you want information as far as my coaching. I do a daily dose. Been like 89, or we're almost at 90 since the beginning of the coronavirus and the lockdown. I do a daily show. It's on Facebook, and that's at 8 a.m. daily. And I have for 89 episodes, 10 to 20 minutes tops of just encouragement. We get a daily dose of things in our lives, and they could be a lot of things that can set you up for not a great day, or not a great week, or not a great month. And I just wanted to provide a daily dose of encouragement. And that's what I do on Facebook, on my personal page on there.
Cool. And you work with mostly people over 40. So give me 2 years and I'll be looking you up, Mark. I'm not quite 40 yet. I'm almost there.
Yeah. You might be my competition.
Yeah, maybe. No, that's cool. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Mark. So happy to have you on. I appreciated the conversation.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate it too. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks, Carla.
This episode is brought to you by my company, Power Fitness Online. We are a tight-knit fitness community, and we guide you every step of the way to get fit and stay fit through our live workouts, nutrition coaching, and incredible support team. Go to powerfitnessedson.com to learn more. Thank you for tuning into the podcast today. If you enjoyed it, please leave a positive review on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Music, or wherever you're listening. And if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, I would love to see your comments. I would love to know what you think about this episode and interact with you. I love hearing from you. Once again, I'm Carla Rand, and this is The Carla Rand Show, and I can't wait to see you next week for our next episode.